Hi, guys. Welcome back to Real Food Recovery, where we help support those healing from the effects of ultra processed food addiction, or if you prefer, ultra processed food use disorder. Either one covers the same topic that we're going to be talking about. So today's conversation is a big one because it's something we're seeing more and more in recovery circles. The use of the GLP-1 receptor agonists like Ozempic will get we Wegovy and Monjaro to support weight loss. Whether you're taking one of these medications, considering it, or just curious, this episode is for you. And by the way, we've already done an episode on how to increase your body's GLP-1 hormones naturally. That's episode 101. If you've missed that one, definitely go back and give that a listen. But today we want to talk about how these medications can be a tool, not a cure, in the recovery journey. So I want to start out by saying hello to Shay, one of our team leaders here. She's a certified life and health coach specializing in habit and behavior change, a root cause trauma informed coach with a particular focus on nervous system health, and a certified functional nutrition counselor who approaches healing holistically. Good morning. Hello. How are you? Not
Hey,
morning
hey,
for
hey.
you.
I know
What's
it's
happening?
afternoon here in South Africa. Yay, good to
Yeah.
see you, Paige. Brilliant, brilliant. How's it your side?
Yeah.
Oh,
All
beautiful.
good.
Good, good. So, yes, what a privilege actually to have this conversation. As you rightly say, Paige, this is becoming more and more and more headline news, isn't it? And I know certainly in the different spaces and places that we get to work with humans, this is a real thing that many
Yeah.
are wrestling with. And I think for me, one of the things that I want to say right at the start is that we know that there's never one size fits all.
Thank
With
you.
people.
Yeah.
When we're working with humans, there's no one size fits all. Every single one of us is unique and different. And so that would be my kind of like sort of thing that I would lay out today, and I'm not saying that these are bad. I'm not saying that they're wrong or right or whatever in that sense. It's complex. It's a complex situation, isn't it? And there are so many folk out there, if it's right for their journey, then this becomes part of their story. And I think that's our heart here, really, isn't it? Is how can we help you write your story of health and
Yeah.
wellness and what is needed at that point? I mean, I so often sit with clients or potential clients that are really wrestling the difficult reality of this. And it's heartbreaking when you really hear their story, it's
Yeah.
heartbreaking.
Hmm.
So, what we do know, in short, GLP-1s, which is, and here comes the mouthful, short for glucagon-like peptide 1 receptor agonists. These are medications which mimic a hormone that our body is designed to naturally produce. And that keyword is naturally, okay? What do? They help regulate our blood sugar, they help reduce our appetite, slow digestion. And this is why they're used in treating type 2 diabetes and now widely used for weight loss, as we know. But we live in a complex world where I think we're seeing more and more of how much society and everything within it seems to be creating us to move away from satisfaction and simplicity and actual, real, healthy bodies, heart, souls, relationships. And it slowly almost feels like we're being forced into
Yeah.
dysregulation and disconnection. And then all of a sudden, the solution being sold as a little packaged medication.
Yeah.
It would
Who wouldn't jump on that?
yeah,
Who
I
wouldn't?
know. Mm, yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I agree with you so much. And that's exactly why prescriptions for these drugs have skyrocketed. By
Mhm.
2024, over 15 million Americans were taking a GLP-1, and that number is still climbing to no surprise to anyone. But here's the thing, like any external tool, these meds don't teach you how to eat real food. how to feel your emotions instead of eating them, or how to heal the root cause of why we turn to ultra processed foods in the first place. I remember watching that Oprah special that she did about these medications, and she said something like, now instead of eating a whole bagel, I just eat half a bagel. I was so disappointed in hearing that because I felt like she was missing the point. And she has such a huge audience. So many people are influenced by her. So she's steering people towards portion control instead of healing because number one, not everybody can afford it. And number two, what happens when you eventually get off the medication? Because if she's saying that's the only reason she ate half a bagel, once you go off, the chances of you eating a whole bagel come right back. So, do you think the impact is in when influential figures like Oprah frame success as eating half a bagel instead of helping people understand why we reach for the full bagel in the first place?
Yeah, oh, Paige, that's so key. I love what you said about why. You know,
Yeah,
I often say when we're dealing with people, we're dealing with a unique person in front of us, and we've got to remember context.
yeah,
I always say everything is connected, all things matter, and we're all unique. Okay. Story matters. And I know for us, certainly here at Real Food Recovery, and I believe in a lot of other recovery work, that freedom and resilience is our aim at the end of the day, isn't it? Freedom and resilience. And for anyone that has sat with anyone in any addictive behavior, dig a little deeper and you'll see that their heart's cries, I want to be free and I want to
right.
be strong enough to be able to
Hmm.
move through this, you know? And I think a key thing to note is that these GLP-1 meds, they may regulate appetite biochemically, but they don't heal the root drivers.
Yeah,
You know, they
yeah,
don't heal the wine. In other words, they may give a false sense of safety and control for a while. And sure,
yeah,
there's a place for them. You know, if you're seeing a unique individual and their story in front of you, but, you know, emotional disconnection and unmet needs and survival adaptations that drive overeating goes way beyond hunger, you know, way beyond
hmm,
it. It's rarely about the food from what I've, you know, experienced journeying with people and in my own life.
yeah,
Addictive properties of formulations aside, it's about our core human needs
hmm,
regulation, comfort, safety, you know, and from a functional and trauma-informed lens, the context and story of a person matters hugely, Paige. Our body,
yeah,
our mind, emotions, relationships, environment, it all interconnects. You know, Paige, we're not, in my belief, we're not machines to be portion controlled. There's a place, if that's part of your story, but we're complex beings that seek balance and freedom and connection and love and safety and belonging and purpose and all these things with resilience, you know. And
yeah,
portion control or medication can never provide that for us.
right.
True nourishment only happens when physiology, emotions, and identity are all aligning, not when symptoms alone are managed, you know, I
Right.
believe at least.
Yeah. And you hit a point about not addressing the root cause, which is why, like we mentioned, we have a lot of people we work with who are on the medication. But I had one in particular person who said, I'm just not that hungry. So instead of eating food, I'll still grab, the M&Ms and just eat less of those. So that becomes a vicious cycle, especially when that's what we're trying to. I've never done
Yes,
that before. I've never sneezed in a podcast.
there
Where
we
that
go.
came from, I don't know. My apologies. I'm leaving that in for just a
Do
giggle.
it. We
Anyway,
do real here. We do real.
yeah.
It's real food recovery with real sneezes.
So anyway, yeah, I mean, she was the one who recognized immediately, yes, this is working as far as appetite reduction, but I've got to be careful about the choices I'm making. For a lot of people, these GLP-1s can feel like this miracle at first. You feel full faster, you lose weight quickly. And this lady I was talking to said, I am losing weight. So it scares me to go off the medication. But, usually for a lot of people, the cravings are quiet, but not always. So we've seen both, and some of you have written in to share this, that there's a sense of fear about what happens if I go off this, or Why do I still feel emotionally hooked even if I'm not binging anymore? I had a friend who lost a lot of weight, about 30 pounds. She went from just slightly curvy to very, very tiny. So it was a high percentage of her overall body mass. Once she hit her goal, then her doctors started cutting her back to this maintenance dose. And I asked her how she felt on that. And she said, the hunger, I can tell it's starting to come back. And I asked her what she was going to do about it. And she said, this is where I have to just start using my willpower again and just keep eating the half sandwich instead of the whole sandwich. And man, my alarm bells were going off because we know that relying on willpower is a trap. It runs out fast, it's in limited supply. But skill power, that's what carries you forward when hunger returns. And as a coach that specializes in habit and behavior change, what do you say to the person that's battling with the fear of going off the medication?
Yeah. Oh, Paige, it's so real. Oh, my heart just so goes up because actually recently, I've sat with a few people recently, but recently there's one situation that comes to mind, clear as day, with someone wrestling coming off these medications. And they were kind of in a state of either or, do I, don't I? They were truly, truly fearful. I mean, the tears, they were literally
Ugh,
sobbing,
kills me.
it's
Kills
a
me.
really real thing for them,
Yeah,
And we've got to understand from a place of compassion that, this means something to them, how
of
they've got
course.
there. And what I often say at the base of any change work is it's an identity shift that's happening, okay? It's where you're on a journey of low and slow becoming someone who no longer does XYZ or who XYZ. There's going to be a very gentle process. I'm happy to report they've decided to just start to kind of halve the dose. And they felt aligned by that. And there's a sense of peace. But our brain is always trying to evoke a sense of safety, Paige. It wants to move us away from pain, move us away from discomfort, and towards comfort and pleasure and certainty. Deprivation or removal of what it, and I'm saying this in air quotes now, deems safety will evoke a distress response in our body, and it will kick off. It will kick back, it
Mhm.
will resist. And that's the last thing we want to do is deprive, take away anything that the nervous system has wired in is my comfort, is my safety, is working. So our brain loves a plan and it needs to know that it's in control and empowered. And so being able to do things gently and slowly is key. And
Hmm.
when we look at willpower, we see that willpower relies on force, push, control, resisting. It's kind of like it burns out quickly and we kind of white knuckle, especially
Yeah,
when the body's biochemistry and nervous system are recalibrating after these meds, okay?
yeah,
Whereas,
highly stressed.
yeah, totally. Whereas these GLP, sorry, these skill power, on the other hand, it's actually regulation in action. It's
Hmm.
learning the tools and awareness and habits that keep us steady when hunger emotions return, and skills like grounding, mindful eating, self-trust. But that takes a process because, again, all of those behaviors are rooted in a deeper why, and that takes a process.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah, I
Yeah,
won't
I
go.
agree. And I love the fact that we're highlighting that just because the behavior is interrupted, it doesn't mean that the wiring has been
Yeah,
erased. It's still there very much intact. And that's kind of what this client that you were talking about, I'm sure that was her fear.
yeah,
If you
yeah,
peel all the layers back, that
absolutely.
fear is that nothing has changed. So these
Yeah,
meds don't automatically rewire your brain's reward system that's been hijacked by years of ultra processed food. And quite frankly, if you get down to the very root level of the problem, that sums it up because years we've got these wired neural pathways that take work. And I was asking someone the other day, why do you think most people quit recovery?
yeah,
Because it's hard.
yeah,
It's not
yeah,
immediate. It's not
yeah,
immediate gratification. It takes
yeah,
a long time to rewire those. And we're a society of immediate gratification, and people give up and they don't want to do all the work. But one
absolutely.
thing that the pattern interruption might help with is going through sugar detox. So I do agree with that because that can be a beast. That's another thing that people quit over. So I can see where someone could use that to their advantage to get through that initial phase. So what
Yeah.
are some of the first skill power habits that you recommend people start building while they're still on the medication, so then they're not left scrambling if the hunger or old cravings return? What do
Yeah,
people do
beautiful.
first?
Mm. Yeah, beautiful question. And you kind of alluded to just on you said like staying away from the sugar. I often
Yeah,
talk, for me, foundations is vital. It's a non-negotiable. We
yeah.
can never bypass the foundations. So whenever I'm journeying with a client or a group of people or anything, obviously we meet them where they're at. I always say there's two key things we've got to remember. One is we've got to clear the muddy waters. So what are the things that are causing the inflammation or the craving, all that kind of stuff. So we've got to clear all of that stuff out of the way first. Okay. And then we've got to move them from deficiency to sufficiency. We've got to start to add in what is needed to build that sufficiency back in, get the whole body and the terrain built up. I love Christina Veselak in her podcast, Mapping the Addicted Brain. She speaks very, very well about how key, just these two key foundational things, one of a couple, but she talks about consistent eating and getting the body built back up again with nutrients is key because especially when there's, she deals with multiple different addictions, but there's depletion, when we've got sugar in our body and all this kind of stuff, our body is going to need to be learn the regulation of consistency, and then also replenishing the nutrients. And we've got to remember that long-term healing requires neural rewiring. It's teaching the brain again that safety, worth, and satisfaction don't depend on external control. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
These meds will suppress appetite, but when they're stopped, that old neural pathway, those tied to the emotional eating, shame, stress, can reactivate. So that identity shift work, that deeper work that helps the nervous system and the brain relearn new associations like I can feel discomfort and stay connected. I can trust my body. Food is not my regulator. I am. All of that happens through repetition, consistency, somatic awareness, self-observation through compassion. Folk can rebuild that neural scaffolding for self-led nourishment, physically, emotionally, mentally, all of that, instead of med-managed control.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, I agree. And right now, our culture is in a fascinating transition. We're starting to acknowledge food addiction as real,
yeah,
but at the same time, we're we're outsourcing the solution to
yeah,
medication. And I get it. In a world where 73% of adults in the US are overweight or obese, and where ultra-processed foods make up nearly 60% of our calories, this feels like a much needed tool. There are times that I worry our medical system will collapse if we keep going in the direction we're going. We are in a health crisis right now.
yeah,
So
yeah,
something needs to be done. I mean, definitely it needs something needs to happen here. But it's like giving a starving person a ladder when they're stuck in a pit. They still
yeah,
need food, community, a plan, and healing. The ladder helps them start climbing out, but it's not the whole rescue. How do you see us as a society needing to evolve, not just in how we treat obesity or food addiction, but in
yeah,
how we support people once that ladder has gotten them partway out of the pit? What do we need to be building around the
yeah,
medication to help people truly
yeah.
heal?
Yeah. Oh gosh, Paige, how long have we got?
Yeah,
But
right.
I think you said something really key just now, in the sense of this is not a quick fix.
Right.
The why they got there is not going to be a quick fix.
Hmm.
For me, true transformational change is about the long game. The journey is the destination. I often say that in, any of our group stuff and to avoid scrambling later, we get to build capacity and awareness now. To teach people the tools of awareness and, the limitations of these meds, they go far and wide. And in my conversations with a lot of folk currently on these, not many providers or care providers, medical care providers, if at all, will actually refer to those other parts of us that need those
Oh,
deep
no.
system wise, it's never referred to that in my
No.
understanding and from, what I
Mm-hmm.
understand. And it's vital that we provide and facilitate places to understand the emotional, behavioral, and neurological wiring of someone. That's the thing that needs healing and rewiring. It's neuroplasticity
I
and
love that.
bioplasticity right there,
Mm-hmm.
which in short is just the body and the brain's ability to change. But we've got to be
Mm-hmm.
able to approach it like that. And this is for me a key now, Paige, is that there's a critical, vital role for coaching and community in
Mm-hmm.
sustainable transformation when it
Yeah, I
comes,
agree.
you know,
Mm-hmm.
because of what's needed to go deep within for transformational change. It's so important to have that whole person approach, which facilitates building habits into resilient neural muscle, which sustains that freedom that we so badly want for the long term once the medication support has faded.
Right.
Behaviors are just a what? They're just the symptoms, they're not the why.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Yeah.
I agree with all of that. And we're meeting more and more people who are using the GPL ones and coming to us and saying, I'm finally not obsessed with food, but now what? The answer is now it's time to learn to live again because the truth is, if you never learn to emotionally regulate, to cook real food, to set boundaries, to handle discomfort without running to food, you're not truly free. I had an incident on Saturday where, I mean, I just felt jonesy and uncomfortable, like I was crawling out of my skin. I'm like, just feel it, just work through it, let it pass. And at the time, you think, this will never go away. I'm going to feel like this forever if
Yeah.
I don't get, a candy bar or XYZ. But guess what?
Yeah.
I did sit with it. There's a lot of extra stimuli going on, a lot of people out of routine, and those instincts, even in me after 4.5 years, still will sneak up on me, and I just start that Jonesy's feeling. And I even remembered saying to myself, "You're going to be so happier in a couple hours." Your future
Mhm.
self is going to say, thank you that I don't have a stomach ache, a headache, a misery ache. And it does work, but
Yeah.
it does take work.
Yes.
So we
Yeah.
support anyone who's choosing healing. But we
Yeah.
also know this, if you don't build new patterns while you're on the meds, you are more than likely to struggle
Yeah.
if or when you go off of them. I have two really big questions for you, Shay. I'm going to take
Mm.
advantage of your expertise here. For someone who's never known what it feels like to be at peace around food, what role does nervous system regulation play in feeling truly safe and free again, even when those cravings are quiet?
Yeah. Oh, such a good point and question, Paige. The nervous system is the master of story.
Mm-hmm.
Story always matters. And for me, without a doubt, it's a cornerstone. Okay. Because our nervous system technically is running the show. Okay. If it's in stress or survival mode, our body cannot effectively interpret hunger, fullness, or safety or anything like that accurately. Okay. So regulation really helps us rebuild trust with our body. So we're not reacting from a place of, fear or control. And I think that there's four things that we need to know that are really key in this. Okay. And I'll just run through them very quickly. Number one, we need to know safety before strategy. All right. We
Mm-hmm.
can't outsmart a dysregulated body. And again, this depends on the unique individual in front of us. Before sort of hyper focusing on meal plans or portions, that kind of thing, I think it's so important that we do create a sense of safety in our own system. Okay. When our body feels safe, we won't necessarily need the medications or the food to manage our emotions, as it were. But that's a process, and it's unique and individual. Okay. Two, regulation connects our biochemistry and our behavior. Okay, I'll say it again. Regulation connects our biochemistry and our behavior. And this is what I love about where functional nutrition shows up. It's where food meets physiology in the sense. Okay, when the nervous system is calm, our digestion improves, our blood sugar stabilizes, our hunger cues
Mm-hmm.
normalize. And this is where functional nutrition and trauma work meet beautifully. Food nourishes the body, whereas regulation nourishes the system that digests it. However, I will
Mhm.
say things like sugars, ultra-processed foods, all that can dysregulate because of blood sugar imbalance. So it does also dysregulate. So there's a bit of a like kind of catch-22 that goes on
Mhm.
with them, okay? Rewiring from reaction to response. Old eating habits are often stress responses. They're not a lack of willpower. Okay, they're wired in, they're stress responses. Regulation helps the brain and the body rewrite those patterns so we can respond instead of react. And so we're building new wiring for safety, not control. Hello, freedom, as it were.
Mhm. Yeah.
And then one of my favorites, the last one, coaching and community are absolute non-negotiable anchors.
Yeah.
Non-negotiable anchors.
Yeah.
I always say healing and transformation doesn't happen in isolation, it happens in community. Coaching offers us awareness and tools and being able to deeper dive into things with the unique individual, while that community gives us connection, co-regulation, belonging. These are the real antidotes, I think, to shame and relapse. And I think together they make change sustainable, through different ways. And they offer that beautiful co-regulation and belonging. So I think there's a real sense of safety that's required for sustainable transformation where your nervous system, and the person no longer needs to control that food because they've healed the roots of the why more than ever.
Yeah, and our community and Real Food community, where we have our online food addiction support group coaching on our Zoom meetings, it is a real help, especially for people struggling, just knowing that there's other people who have walked in these shoes. And when I get in the room, I can hear other people that,
Yeah.
I can nod my head in familiarity and just knowing you're not alone. Don't you
Yes.
think that's
Yes.
just, I think
Yes.
that's like almost the biggest thing is I'm not alone in this. There's nothing, I'm not the only one with it. I'm
Yeah.
not weird. I'm not broken. Other people are out there struggling too. And it's very encouraging to see other
It is.
people on the
It is.
journey too and trying to fight the good fight. It gives you more oomph. I don't know what other word to use.
And a relief that it doesn't have to be
Yes.
either or, that there is a colorful in between that matches my story right now. I don't have to
Mm-hmm.
hide this thing in a shameful way and be cast out of the community because,
Right.
no ways. It's yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, I did have one other question for you because it really highlights how important identity work is. And that is, do you think there's a risk that people use the medication to shrink their body, but never get the chance to shift their identity? And
Mm,
and so they still then see themselves through this same lens of shame or addiction?
yes, so good, Paige. I love this. Now we're really talking my language here. This is I from my coaching kind of like platform that I coach from is that our beliefs form our identity forms our behaviors, and our behaviors form our habits. So for listeners, I'll just say that again. Our beliefs form our identity forms our behaviors, and our behaviors form our habits. And in service of survival, our deepest survival parts form these strategies of safety, comfort, ease, protection, etc. Okay, anything that kind of sets us up as a target or anything that is a sense of danger or threat. And so we then become someone. If we've got these stories that I'm a target, I'm under threat, etc., we then become someone who has these kind of behaviors in place, all right, that then end up becoming, habits. I I journeyed with someone. I'm currently journeying with someone who has had numerous traumatic loss tied to success. Every time this person throughout their whole life has had some sort of success, breakthrough, win, whatever it is, something traumatic happens out of their control on the other side of that. And in a deep dive session a little while ago, we ended up connecting that there's this unconscious belief that success equals pain and trauma and loss. And so they end up hitting up against any form of sort of success, whether it's through health
Mm,
or well-being, and so that's wired into their identity. And so
hmm.
until you go to that deeper place of undoing the belief systems attached to that, they're not going to shift who they are and how they show up, okay? And again, like I say, it's important to know that these medications can shift biochemistry, but they're not going to shift the belief systems, or the attachment patterns or the trauma
Right.
imprints that are tied to the behaviors, and this is
Yeah.
where coaching and community matters massively.
Totally. Totally. So, our message is really simple. You can use meds and build recovery skills.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be either or. But
Yeah.
it does take intention.
Yeah.
That's why we talk about self-trust, cooking at home, feeling your feelings, creating new joy rituals, and relearning what full actually feels like. So the GPL ones might quiet your physical hunger, but we want to help you understand emotional hunger, spiritual hunger, even relational hunger.
Mhm.
That is why we have all these branches of recovery at Real Food Recovery because we want to deal with the whole person. Shay, a lot of people assume once they've lost the weight or stopped binging, the work is done, but we both know recovery is a lifestyle, not a finish line. How do you help people stay engaged in the healing
Mhm.
process once that urgency phase fades? I've often heard you
Mhm.
say that recovery is the journey, not the destination.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, this is such a beautiful question. I think for me, Paige, yes, you did say the journey is the destination.
Yeah.
But I think I truly believe that anything that is truly alive and living will grow and thrive. It will continue to grow and thrive, and it will reproduce. It will produce, like trees would produce flowers and fruit, and there's all this different stuff. And I think that's the same with us, Paige. We're always evolving, we're always changing. And I love that kind of perspective that the greatest gift to the world we are is the person that we're becoming. I'm a person of faith. I believe that God has created us with purpose and unique gifts and abilities and an infinite ability, and these who we are, the needs, everything that is in us, I think is constantly changing. And unless we're in a place where what's buried deeply or the potential of who we are, unless that is drawn out, it's going to kind of stagnate. I mean, I think about just like the values that we do. My values 10 years ago are very different to my personal values now. There's one or two that are the same. But as we grow and evolve and change and we mature and we learn and we unlearn, unless someone is seeing you through the lens of the whole person and all the potential in you and your dreams and your goals and what you want to reach for and stretch for, you're not going to really kind of, grow and stretch in that sense. So I think the key is to journey with those who see you and the potential of who you are becoming
Mm-hmm.
so that you can be all you're created to be, which is a thriving human that is
Yeah.
evolving and growing and changing.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that. I
Yeah.
love that. And as this class of medication becomes more widespread, we're going to see more people who've lost the weight but still feel lost, which is why our work has to flex a little bit. We're not just teaching abstinence from certain foods, we're guiding people into full spectrum healing, brain, body, heart, habits. We don't shame anyone's path, but we will always ask, what are you really hungry for? Because that's the question that leads to freedom.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
I love this conversation, and let's end this with some questions our audience has sent in. I think these are great. They show
Mm.
how deeply people are thinking about this, and we're going to just do like this quick lightning round to get all of them and reemphasize some of the points we have already touched on. So I'll start out. Is it still considered recovery if I'm using GLP-1s? Yes, if you're doing that inner work and healing your relationship with food, it's recovery. If you're just using it to modify ultra processed food and eat less of that, that's not recovery. So hopefully that answers your question. And I don't mind going over that again. I think it's a very
Yeah.
big point to bring out.
Yeah. Very good, Paige. Yeah. So this listener question, can these meds actually retrain my brain? Good question. So they may interrupt patterns temporarily, and there's a place for the support as part of a bigger and whole person approach. But deep healing always takes deeper work with emotions,
Mm-hmm.
habits, and community. There's a whole centered. Remember, everything is connected. So yeah.
Mm-hmm. Great. I love that question. Do you recommend going off these drugs eventually? So that's a personal decision, but we
Mm.
encourage you to build sustainable food and emotional skills while on them. I think some people will be on them for life. I don't know that. So there's a scale, and some people use these at a very high scale of like 100 units or 10 milligrams for weight loss, where micro dosing might be 25 or 2.5 milligrams. And some people use a, even less than that for really extra micro dosing. So it all depends. And so it's something definitely to talk to your doctor about. But I would always recommend what is the smallest dose I can get what I need from that, as
Yeah,
well as work with habit change at the same time.
very good, Paige. Very good. Yes. So this question, I'm afraid I'll gain all the weight back. What should I do? Well, first of all, I'd say you're not alone. This is a very real wrestle. And I've
Hmm.
sat with people, like I said earlier. I would always say it's one small step. Stay empowered, stay in community, work and walk with people who will see you as the unique individual, um,
Yes.
and meeting you with what's right for your needs, focusing
Hmm.
on your why, where you get to build skills now, not just focus on numbers on a scale. A whole
Hmm.
centered approach, meeting you where you're at and what's right for you. Because what's right for you now will change, so
Yes.
unique, small, yeah.
Love that. How do I handle judgments from others about using these meds?
Mm.
First of all, it ain't nobody else's business. You don't even have to tell anybody if you don't want to. So this is
Yeah.
your journey. There's no shame in using tools that help,
Mm.
especially if you are using it as a tool and not just as a weight loss. But make sure you're not only relying on the tool that you're doing, like we talked about, the holistic approach from every single angle. Am I doing absolutely everything I can to be the healthiest version of myself that I can? Mentally,
Yes.
physically, emotionally, all that. So,
So good, Paige. Yeah, there's a lot of scaremongering talk out there. It's not
oh
helpful to
yeah.
someone who's truly informed about it.
Hmm.
Right. Other question. I've lost weight but still feel food obsessed. Why? This is because the brain's reward pathways still need rewiring. Okay. Weight loss doesn't equal freedom.
Hmm.
Hence
It's white
those
knuckling.
deeper, yeah, that's it, that's it. Hence that deeper skill and rewiring of those pathways, plus the healing from the root why they formed in the first place is key. It's this kind of inner game and outer game, journeying with someone. What are those deeper whys of why I've got there? And then also the brain, dopamine is a natural requirement for the brain. So there is healthier ways, and then just putting those steps into place. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Great one. I love that so much. What's a good first step beyond the meds? I
Mm.
am a freak about you. You asked the right person this question. I am a freak about cooking real meals. I am a recipe queen. I love to create recipes. I am never bored with my food. I love my food. So I would say start by cooking real meals, join a support group like Real Food Recovery, and begin learning to feel your feelings without food. And by the way, it may be uncomfortable.
Yeah.
You may be ow while
Yeah.
you sit there, but guess what? It will go away. And the more you practice feeling the feelings, the better equipped you are for the next time that feelings come up. Talk
Yeah.
about safety as one of our biggest needs. It's I guess our biggest need. If you can feel safe with your emotions, man,
Yeah.
you're rounding third base heading into home. So
Yeah.
that's what I say. And I also like the idea of working harder on your environment than you do on yourself. That's just my personal opinion, but when
Mm.
I heard that, I really agreed setting up your environment for success is a big one too.
Yeah. So good. It builds resilience, doesn't it? Which brings
Yes.
freedom.
Yes.
So good.
Yes.
Right, good question. This one. Can I recover without giving up all processed foods? My short answer is it depends. But
Mm-hmm.
in honesty, some can moderate. Again, remember, we're unique individuals, okay? So others need full abstinence, a hard line of no. It really does depend on how our brain responds and how you respond and what's the story driving the behaviors, okay? It can become tricky when we're playing with fire, all right? I often say if you have to ask the question, then there's already a clue there, as it were. But back to identity shift work, becoming someone who does and doesn't X, Y, Z
Right.
is because freedom is the aim. So again, it's
Mhm.
your story, your journey, working, reassessing, tweaking, tracking. Yeah, takes a bit of figuring it out.
And I want to just say something about processed foods too. It's not just about losing weight. If you're talking about your health,
Yeah,
they're saying ultra processed foods, they're calling diabetes 3 or dementia diabetes 3.
yeah, yeah.
Every bite of processed food you take increases cellular aging while single ingredient food increase cellular repair. So the last thing you want is cancer, diabetes, metabolic syndrome, all of these things, widespread inflammation you don't want in your body. Forget the weight loss. What about just feeling good, especially as you age? So, anyway, I'll get off
That's
my
it.
soapbox.
No,
Um,
so good.
is this a forever thing when it comes to recovery? Recovery evolves, but yes, the need to stay mindful and intentional is ongoing. And what I like to say is I'm grateful for that. I don't need it to say, okay, I crossed the finish line. That's a scary place to ever let my foot up on the gas.
Yeah.
The drive looks different, but I do still have my foot on the gas pedal. And for that, I'm very, very grateful. So it's not restrictive to me. It's actually freedom for me to actively participate in my recovery every single day in some way. I'm always aware because most of the time your addiction is scanning the room. So you
Mhm.
need to remain hyper vigilant.
That's it. And again, remember, it's always in service of survival. So it's that nervous system work and aware of what are the stories, like what is going on right now. So you're able to meet yourself where you're at in that moment, which is so key.
Hmm.
So this last question, it's a great one. What do I tell my doctor who only talks about meds? Okay, so this is real, very real. It's complex, and it really does require a good support network, I believe, to help you in being your own advocate, under
Yeah.
wise guidance, of course, yeah, let's just be clear about that. I think when you are sitting in front of your medical care provider, it's important to have questions like asking them about therapy and nutrition, community support. Bring the full picture of you into the conversation. And if you're walking with a care provider who sees you as a whole person, great.
Yeah.
If you're not, my
Hmm.
soft advice is find one who will see you
Hmm.
holistically and functionally if possible, because
Hmm.
that will bring a greater sense of health and healing and wellness to you because you're being dealt with as a whole person,
Yeah.
um, connected,
Yeah.
very key. Yeah,
Agree.
beautiful. Some really good questions there. Paige, this is such a great conversation, and
Yeah.
I think for our listeners, what a key timing of it, and we really hope that this episode has given you a balanced healthy look at what it means to recover with or without medications. Our heart, I think, I really hope that you feel from this conversation that there is no kind of judgment and no blame and no shame, because there is no shame in our story. We're here to walk with you, to work with you,
Yeah.
whether you're taking the meds, whether you're considering them, whether you're trying to heal without them. Our mission always, always stays the same here: real food, real people, real
Hmm.
feelings, and real freedom.
I
Yeah.
agree. So, if this episode has made you feel seen or gave you language for what you've been experienced, don't keep it to yourself. Share it with someone else on this healing journey and leave us a review so others can find their way to real food, real feelings, and real freedom too. And we'll see you next time on Real Food Recovery. And if you want to find out more about us, you can find us at realfoodrecoveryforyou.com. And if you're interested in our book, Real Food Recovery. If food isn't the answer, what's the question? You can find that on Amazon today. Thanks, guys. See you later. Bye bye.